Hey everyone, my name is Alexandra and I am a watercolor artist. Today I am going to be teaching you guys how to paint a watercolor hummingbird. Let's get started. For supplies today, you guys will need 2 cups of water. I have one for clean, one for dirty water, a napkin for drying my brushes. For paper today, I'm using Arch's 140-pound cold press watercolor paper. Paints, I'm using Philisophy and Co's terrain watercolor palette, and I've also just added a brown in as well for our painting. And lastly, for brushes, I'm using Princeton rounds numbers 2, 6, and 8. The first thing that I've done to prepare for our painting is I have lightly sketched out the main shapes of my hummingbird. If you guys do this or don't do this ahead of time, that is okay, but just to give you an idea of what I've drawn out, for the head, if you draw out a little circle and then a bigger oval coming off of it for the body, and then our wings and our tail and everything will sort of come off of that center shape. So it can be helpful just to get that center point drawn out for the rest of the hummingbird. But we will get started with painting in the base color of our hummingbird. So I'm actually going to start by painting all of it in with a very faded sort of cream color. So I'm actually just mixing in a little bit of my pink with some of my brown in here. And I'm using my largest brush just because I want to get some nice coverage of my hummingbird. Sort of this watery paint that I have. Now for this painting, we are going to work relatively quickly for a lot of parts of it, just because I want to take advantage of the wet paper so that we can use more of a wet on wet technique to get some really cool color blends. So I'm making sure that this part that I'm painting is well saturated. And we're going to add our wings after. So right now we're just starting with the base of our bird. So hopefully now that I've added some color, you can see the shape just a little bit better. And I'm going to switch to my number 6 brush, again working pretty quickly. And we're just going to go right in with adding some colors. So I'm going to mix up I'll do some of my Spanish moss here and mix it a little bit with this really bright willow tree color. And I'm going to go right into the head of my hummingbird and then into the body here and the top of my tail. I really like what these colors are doing, but I want to add even more depth to that. So we're really working on building our palette here, and I'll go in with some brighter green this time. So I'm mixing my balsam and my vine leaf, and then I'm just going to keep going with the same concept. While it's wet, I'm adding strokes into top of the head, a little bit on the body, and then onto the tail again. And I don't mind if the colors are all sort of mixing, if they're not too consistent. Now that I've done that, I might add a little bit more water down below here just to make sure that it blends. And we are going to go in and add some of our sourwood red. And this is just going to give it some really nice vibrance. So going in down below. And we'll see as we keep adding these colors, it's really going to come to life. So with that same color, I am going to go in to my tail here and just add some strokes coming down. And then I can even mix a little bit more onto the body here, kind of at the base of where the wing is going to be. And then we'll do a touch to the top of the head. You have to make sure that when you're adding water specifically for this part, that your paper is damp, but if you were to lift it up, it wouldn't drip down. Otherwise, you'll find that specifically with the red and the green, it's really easy for the colors to get very muddy. So now I'm gonna go in with sort of an orangey, browny yellow and paint into the bottom of my hummingbird. I'd even add a little bit of brown to that. And we're just gonna come down here, as well as under the tail. Now the other thing I want to be careful of is that I'm not overworking my painting. So once I kind of see that it looks like this, it doesn't look too muddy yet for colors, they're mixing really nicely, then I'm gonna leave it there, let things dry. While we do that, we can actually go ahead and paint in the beak of the hummingbird. So I'm gonna switch to my smaller brush for this. So with my smaller brush, I want to mix sort of a gray black color. I don't actually have black in this palette, so I'm just going to mix a mixture of some blue, some brown, and a touch of red. And once I have that tested on my napkin, I like the color, we're going to go into the beak. And what I'm doing here is I'm just going to start by painting one long straight line just so that I have my guide. And then from that, I'm going to take it and just curve it out so that it attaches to my bird. Typically what I'll do with something like this is I want to take the color that I just mixed and I'm going to use a more concentrated version at the bottom, just to give it some nice shading. Okay, now that we've done that, it is time to go in and paint the wings. So to paint our wings, I'm going to use my number 6 brush, and this one I'll sort of take from some of the colors I've used for the bird itself. And then I'm gonna add some more as well and just have some fun with it. So I'm actually gonna start just by painting with water. And as soon as I add colors in here, you'll see a little bit more of what I'm doing. So we'll start by using this green that we had, and then I'm going to add more colors to it. And what I'm doing with my brush is I'm just doing strokes out. I want this to look very fluid. I'm leaving white spaces in between to kind of give the effect that the hummingbird is flying. And I'll do the same for the second wing in behind, but a slightly different color. And I've blended it into the body. And now that I've done that, I want to go in and actually add some different colors. So I'm going to go in with sort of this bluey purple color here and do the same thing, but just go over top of where I've already painted. And using a lighter version in behind just to give the effect of the other side of the wing. And now I can even go in with a touch of purple if I want, adding it to some of the spots where it's not already been. Those really loose lines. And now with the same color, I'm actually gonna go over the tail here and just tie those colors in nicely. So I'm using a bit of a glazing technique here by painting different colors on top of each other. Now we're gonna let the wings dry and then we'll add a little bit more depth soon, but we'll start by finishing off our first layer by adding the eye and some little feet. So for my feet, I'm gonna take sort of the same color as I did the beak with, nice and watered down, and all that we're gonna do is paint 2 little curved lines coming down from our bird. And now for the eye, same thing, I'm gonna go into sort of the black color that I had made. And where the beak goes, we're going to paint a circle in here. Now with my circle, I'm going to add or leave some white space in the center. Being very careful with it, keeping it nice and small. All right, now that we've done that, it is time to add the detail. So with my small brush, I'm going to go into this sort of red color that I have here. And we're just going to add some details around the eye coming down. So I'm doing sort of like little strokes to kind of mimic the feathers. And then the same idea by the tail here. Now with my beak color, I'm going to actually just carry it out slightly towards the eye. Now the same thing that I did with the red here, I'm going to do with my green. Now that I've done that, the last thing that we're going to do is add some detail to our wings. So I'll go into some of that blue color that I had mixed, and I'm just going to add some darker strokes. Not being too picky with these, it's okay if they're nice and loose. And I'm only actually going to add to the front wing just because I want the back one to look separate. Now to tie in all of our colors, I'll do the same thing with the green, but a little less. I'm going to use it slightly more as an accent. And then the same thing with my red paint. And there you guys have a loose watercolor hummingbird. I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. This is one that is so fun to paint. I like to try it with different color blends and mixes, and it's a good way also just to practice your wet on wet watercolor technique. If you guys like this video, make sure to subscribe to this channel and leave a comment below on what you'd like to learn next time. We'll see you next time.